Oh, we're gonna start early without Anne. She's not on.
Oh, okay.
She's a hot.
Text you, we are live right now.
Okay. Well,
Can't fix it.
that's some great shots. Mm-hmm.
But can I still take my minutes on this one?
Can I take your minutes on this one?
Let me close it down here. Okay.
So just make sure that one's started. Get it started.
How are you? Great.
Oh, Laura, are you calling Wendy's phone?
No, I sent her the link
Oh,
so she could get on that way, and she can even call into the Zoom if she wants, but our audio will pick up much better if she does it either through the phone on Zoom or this actual Zoom. okay. Hello, Mr. Papa.
Why am I so far away?
I don't know, come sit down. I forgot to.
Is this the,
Do you want to come join today, you and Mr. Taylor?
We're good. Well, my head will block the nice visuals of the screen.
security. Go. Lori, can you resend an email to Wendy? Wendy at teddriven.com.
I forgot to ask. Can I sit in your chair? No.
No, please do, please, no.
So we- Yeah. Yeah. So we're looking to the meet the week of July 5th. Do you know? Yes.
I think, so that's about it.
So we're having Wednesday the 2nd.
I'm away the 7th, 8th,
We'll be able to
9th. Yeah, 100%.
So the 9th.
Hey, Erin.
Hello.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we did something.
Yeah, just let me know when.
Yep, thanks. All yours.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Wendy should be.
She's on there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, please. Just thought it'd be easier to have you do it.
Gotcha. Look at my shoulders. Like, literally sitting at my desk.
Up into your 40s.
Yeah, I'm like, what's just going on here?
Awesome, isn't it?
I didn't get it, like,
Did you just sleep weird?
I think so, yeah. But it wasn't bad this morning, it was just bad, like this afternoon, which is like.
All right, we give you the brokerage. I feel like a turtle on my back.
I tried to pay her money to give it to Andrew.
What's that? Oh, the brokerage or
I was like, she took it out, and I was like, no, no, no.
Good.
Here, Andrew.
So you didn't
It's trying to be funny.
All right, time for new office furniture budget. We're gonna add that to that.
You have about 2 hours to get that done.
I better hurry.
All right, so we're ready? All right, let's call to order this regular session meeting of the Park City School Board on June 15, 2021 at 4 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of May 18th, 2020? Should I say 2021? Account payable registers of April 30th, May 6th, 10th, 12th, 14th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, and June 1st, 2021. Fraud risk assessment, communities that care memorandum for understanding, classified professional agreement, personnel information, personnel professional agreements, May expenses and revenues.
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as read.
Perfect. Do we have any discussion?
Second.
Second, sorry.
And seconds.
Ann seconds. Any discussion? We can't hear Ann.
I think we can hear the audio.
Can I just get a thumbs up, Ann? Do you have any discussion on that? I think Wendy's good. All right. Can I get an all in favor? Can I get you guys to give me a thumbs up if we're good?
Yeah, they were doing it before. Yes.
Do you have an aye? Unanimous. Thanks, Andrew. All right, let's move on to our employee groups. Mr. Webb, would you like to come up and join us?
Oh, sure.
So I'm here to read our PCA report and statement. PCA leadership would like to thank students, faculty, staffs, administrators, families, and district personnel for finishing the school year strong. It's been a difficult year for everyone, and we appreciate the commitment to still educating students successfully despite the pandemic. Our comment this afternoon relates to policy 10,010. We appreciate Dr. Gilday and Dr. Sorensen keeping us informed as to the status of the OCR review and the numerous iterations of the adjustments to this policy as required by state code. Still, many teachers in elementary schools are uncertain of their child's enrollment status for the fall. As a result, there is fear and worry that come August, many teachers will not be able to enroll their children, forcing them to make difficult job decisions if they live outside the district boundaries. While this issue impacts a small number of teachers directly, it's an issue that affects every teacher in PCA in some way. Especially on the heels of a challenging year, we asked the district to offer these teachers a formal written confirmation as soon as possible so they can be certain whether their child will be enrolled in the fall and where. We understand that it's a complicated issue, but teachers deserve to know their children's future and their own without waiting until August. We all want what is best for students, teachers, families, and other stakeholders. Before we can find long-term, creative, mutually beneficial solutions to policy 10,010, we have to ensure students can enter summer and prepare for the fall, knowing their child will be able to attend a school of their choice. We all know it's good. We all know it is good for the district and the community to keep these teachers, and we've already lost some teachers as a result of this uncertainty. The sooner this is resolved, the better for all of us. Thank you.
Yes, Aaron.
And can I ask
Yep.
a quick question?
Yep.
Is the concern that the children won't be enrolled or won't be enrolled at the teacher's school?
The concern is that they won't be, well, it's actually both. Because we have some coming from Heber and Camas and Salt Lake. Then we also have some inter-district transfers. So it's a combination of both.
Okay, what's the latest on that?
So Todd and I have talked about this before. Lori and I have talked about it before. I could probably give you the summary. Typically, there's 116 to 150 kids
Yep.
annually. And as we looked at it, we didn't see any cause for alarm or any cause to be worried. The age group is kindergarten, right? So the
Right.
kindergarten age group is always the unknown because you have to kind of wait until the families bring their registrations in before we know our seat availability. So we didn't have trouble last year, though. If we were going to have trouble, I would have thought it would have happened last year during the pandemic, and we fit everybody last year. So we're not.
So is it correct though in the assumption, like my understanding of this is that anyone, the teachers and staff members who want to enroll their students that are coming from out of district, we don't anticipate that being an issue. The issue that we could foresee is that certain sections are closed due to mandatory class size restrictions, right? So I think that's an important distinction, is that, you know, we are totally on the same page as you guys and your membership, that there shouldn't be anyone, you know, our goal is to have enrollment for all staff and employees, which has always been the case. I think it's an interesting year because there's a lot of teachers trying to get their kids into kindergarten at a specific school, which may or may not have spots. But I think that we should definitely communicate back out to your membership that we're not worried about kids being enrolled in the district. It's the same as anyone, you know, transferring intra-district, right? Is that we do our best to accommodate everyone at their school of choice, but sometimes that's not possible, which is the same for everyone. Is that helpful? I mean,
A little bit. I mean, another concern that's floating up is that, you know, we have one member who has a 5th grader and a 3rd grader already enrolled in Mid-Poland, but he hasn't heard about his kindergartner. So is his family going to be split up, you know, or is the kindergartner going to be allowed to attend the same school as his or her older siblings? And there's 2 or 3 instances of that where people are just waiting to hear back. There were a couple instances where people reported that their paperwork was lost and they had to submit photocopies of, oh, I actually did turn in this paperwork.
so how does this kind of bubble up to you? Or like what's the protocol? Because I think this is an important issue in that it's become very public and there's parents who are upset. You know, there's board members who are upset. There's, you know, and it seems like it doesn't need to be that way because we're all on the same page that we want all teachers and staff's kids to be able to come here. So, like, starting from that point, it seems like this is getting kind of, it's much ado about nothing. I mean, not in the sense that, you know, everyone has anxiety about their kids being enrolled in school. I'm not trying to diminish that, right? Don't get me wrong. But from a board perspective, we're all on the same page that we want everyone to be here. So, and we certainly want to attract and retain educators, right? So, like, are the teachers coming to the PCEA? Is the PCEA representing them to the administration? Is it ad hoc right now? Are they just going to administration on their own? Like, how do we fix this from a tactical perspective short term, and then how do we deal with it going forward? You know what I mean? Like, so that it doesn't get out of hand and nothing happens, right? So we can resolve these things.
The teachers were going directly to PCA leadership and to our Eastern UNISERV director, Bonnie Lee Henry. And we've just been compiling, you know, all of the emails and all the concerns and documentation as we get it. And I think maybe this started with some misfires in communication, and the timing is odd, and there's the OCR thing all, you know, mixed up into it. One of the main thing that keeps coming up over and over again is I was told that this was something that would be, you know, in place for me. I was told I would be able to bring my kids to school with me. I was told that I would be able to have my kids in the district, even if I go ahead and buy a house in Camas or whatever. I'll still be able to bring them in, you know. So for whatever reason, right or wrong, people have had these conceptions. And something seems to have shifted this year. So people are, highly anxious, and I mean, in terms of resolving it long-term, I mean, I think that's a whole other discussion and negotiation process. I feel like I've strayed from your question.
No, I think it's,
So,
I'm just kind of confused why there's still unknowns.
Oh,
right?
I-
mean, I don't know.
I think because people are still waiting to hear back, if we're. if
And
they-
is
they're
it's
enrolled in
normal on
school
any
A, B, or
given
C.
year that you would hear back?
Well, typically, we give decisions in August, right?
Right, in August,
So
right?
there's a statutory, all of this is based on a state statute, so this is not like a Park City School District perk, this is just an open enrollment statute for the state of Utah, so we're just following the statute. But there are certain deadline dates, like the third Friday of February is the deadline for getting your stuff in. Of course, we always accept stuff afterwards, but there are certain timelines that go along with that statute. So people apply for enrollment by February 22nd or the third Friday of February, then within like a couple of weeks, we need to give our initial response. So the challenge in that statutory timeline is that by March of the year prior, it's really hard to say what your section numbers are going to be in the next August. So they're actually asking you to make a 6-month prediction. And as part of the statute, you're not permitted to hire a teacher to address open enrollment counts. It's supposed to be to fill seats, it's not supposed to be to add to your seats. So you have to know what your seats are before you can say, yes, come on in. So one of the challenges we run into is we have 2 elementary schools that right now are over-enrolled, so a lot of people that moved in or have school-age kids, and 2 areas or 2 schools that are slightly under-enrolled. So do you continue to have 25 kids in kindergarten over here on this side of town, and 13 and 15 in kindergarten on that side of town, or do you try to work to balance the section counts? So those are the kinds of conversations that happen.
But then so it sounds like what we could say how many teachers are we talking about here that are
I'm
in
up
pending
to-
status?
I'm up to about 20 right now on my list, but I have to go over and double check that.
So can we go to these 20 individuals and say, you have a spot in the district, but we're not sure which school
That
yet?
was what they found out in March. That was the communication that went out in March, that everybody was very nervous about when they saw that. So they were declined for necessarily their own school, because that might have been one of the over-enrolled schools. So
Gotcha.
They might have.
So does that sound right, that there's 20 teachers who have been told to wait for their first choice school? Is that right?
I don't know the number, Lori, do you know the number off the
I'm
top of your
pulling it
head?
up right now. I wouldn't say it's that many.
And then I assume we prioritize families that already have students at, that would qualify for some kind of hardship exemption anyway.
Many of these teachers did not submit open enrollment during that early open enrollment period, so
Gotcha.
that's why they're on the tail end of that. So that's part of the issue with many of the kindergartners, because it was a perception that I've already got a kid in the school, I don't need to do it. So we had some situations where they had never filled out an open enrollment form, they had just registered at the school and they lived in Kansas, or they lived in
Right.
Salt Lake, and they just went there and didn't go through the process. So we've explained the process now to principals that everybody has to go through the open enrollment. They all see the tracking sheet that shows who's been approved, where they are on the list, so that they know not to approve them in power school until we get the proper paperwork. But out of these 20, probably, if there are 20 on the list, 19 of them were in that late enrollment period, which I didn't get applications till April, May.
So it's one piece of paper. So basically, that's the difference. So the difference is.
Yeah, but I think it's like a transition year, so to speak, right? Because we're following the state statute now, whereas we weren't before, which is causing some growing pains. Is there a way for us to just reach out to these folks now and help them? Is it?
So tonight, depending how everything goes with the budget,
Yeah.
I believe it's 3 sections, become staffed after the budget's approved, because what we're approving is some of those schools that they're already on that. kind of that number, right? And that's what we tried to explain. So let's say we have 75 kindergartners enrolled at Harley's, for example, right? We're probably not going to have 3 sections. We're probably not going to start out right now with 25, right? We're probably going to go down to 4. And as soon as we do that, all of a sudden we have 15 seats.
And then it's a non-issue.
Becomes a non-issue. But we need to get the budget approved so that we know we have the numbers. So we know we have the seats, then we can.
So in theory, if the budget gets approved as it's proposed, then the 20 individuals who are on waiting status would be confirmed?
It will help the kindergartners, definitely, because at least one of the positions is kindergarten. It'll help a 3rd grade, which is another bubble. And I don't remember if the 3rd one's 5th or 4th, but
Okay.
yeah, but that's what evens it out then.
So tonight's budget should help
So
solve.
maybe, is it, I mean, I know it's summertime and you're off the clock. Is it possible for you to reach out to the team tomorrow morning and try to clarify some of this so you can go back to your members? Because I think, I mean, just know that from our perspective, we want to get this resolved, right? It's not, no one, administration or board is trying to make this difficult. We're trying to be compliant with what we have to be, and, you know, let's get people to be able to enjoy their summers.
Yeah.
I think any efforts at communication are helpful. And it seems like there just was a lot of misunderstanding about the dates involved and
Yeah.
oh, I enrolled my kid at the elementary school for kindergarten. I also had to do this.
Right.
You know, I mean, maybe we need to work together on some kind of a checklist or something very visual and very basic and very clear. Here's how the process works. Here's the ifs and thens. Here's all the conditions and the triggers for, denial or approval based on state statute and attendance and dual language and whatever else the conditions are. It's just,
Maybe
it's just
next
all
year-
kind of bubbled up, and the fact that some approvals happen at a certain point in time, and then denials happen before or after this, it's really confusing the issue, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, maybe we can work with you guys next year to do a joint heads up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
whatever that is, January or whenever the clocks turn, so that we.
Actually, it's, sorry.
Go ahead, no,
Yeah.
Steve, please.
Is we do the open enrollment calculations in the November board meeting. So that's your first indication as to what's afoot for the upcoming school year.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe after we do that, we can, we can circle up with, between Chad
Yeah.
and you guys at the PCEA, just to remind everyone what it's looking like and what the process is so that they know by February where to apply and what the timeline is for approval and all of that stuff, just so everyone's on the same page.
And I think too, with the policy, I think we've had communication too, that we are open to reviewing that. We're just waiting for that OCR to come through and be finished before we can bring it back to the board and get that.
Yeah,
What we
definitely.
need to do, as long as it follows with state statute as well.
Awesome.
Anything
Thanks.
else?
No.
Thanks for keeping me up here to discuss this a little bit. I think
It sounds like you're gonna have a lot more students next year. A
have.
lot more kindergartners in your what's the little flute thing?
Oh,
Ocarina?
quarter.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let kindergartners
I think
touch
Wendy
her
has a
quarter.
question. Wendy may have a question for you, if we can hear her.
She
I don't know where we can, let's
types
see
in the
if she.
chat or something.
Are you on mute, Wendy? No, she's
No.
Or do you have your volume up on your phone or your computer? Oh, we don't have volume.
We can't. But I can get what she needs.
Looks like Ian has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, Anne has a question too. Anne's on mute.
And you're unmute, so you can unmute yourself. You have a little, there you go. Now try. No,
No.
still can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm on. We log off and then come back.
No, now we can
We
hear
got
you.
I can hear you.
We got you. We've got you.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
That's
Okay, I'm gonna go back on mute.
She was our test.
Wendy's on mute. There you go.
That's how you, is it working now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it work now?
Yes.
Yep.
I can hear you, Wendy. Wendy, I can hear you. And you guys can hear me?
Yes. We can hear you all.
Hi, Lori, can you, we can do to show our support for this policy. It sounds like we have to wait to revisit the policy on a couple other outcomes, but just to reiterate that operationally, that's not our lane, but policy-wise, to the extent the policy as written could be rewritten, edited, revised to better support this open enrollment, to support the teachers who are wanting and bringing their kids to the district. We'll be doing that, correct, after we get some more information and response back in the coming months?
Yes.
I just didn't know exactly where we were. Great, thank you. Okay.
If I may, the only other concern that was kind of bubbling up was some people were under the impression that in the past you applied once for elementary and then you're good, you're golden for the rest of the time. And apparently that is or is not the case. So if we could have some clarification.
Yeah, so that changed probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Oh, okay, see that another layer.
And so when the district closed, right, for the first time, which I think was 3 or 4 years ago, what we stated was that anyone who was enrolled at that time would be able to continue on and finish through high school. For people who weren't enrolled, for new enrollees from out of district, they all had to reapply every time they changed schools. So, from elementary to middle school to junior high to high school.
So when people claim that someone told them they were grandfathered in, it was that decision.
It's that their
2
students
years ago.
started prior to us closing the district from enrollment.
Okay.
So like certain teachers at Parleys have kids that have been there, they're all grandfathered in.
Okay.
I have some teachers that.
And that was the
I know,
same
yeah.
for employees' children as well as out of district.
Yeah,
And that was done
I think we
when
need this
we-
written down all in one place somewhere.
Yep.
So there are other caveats in open enrollment statute though. So the other thing that helps is, believe it or not, the statute's actually really clear. It's not in like gobbledygook, like you can really
Yeah.
understand it if you just read it. So really the statute, the policy, basically typically policies follow regulations and statutes anyway. But if you read it through, it really does explain everything from the deadline dates to when you're notified to when you have to reapply. So it has all that in there. So it's pretty clear. But it is, again, it's a statewide program. It's not like a PCSD program. So that's kind of important to know.
Okay.
Perfect. Do you have anything else for us, Erin? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great summer.
I will try.
Dr. Hunt, would you like to come up first, or do you want Mr. Tanner on the
He's
hot
really
seat?
acting
He's
over
the
us.
NC.
Really, I could.
I'm so excited to not wear a mask up here. Be heard. Good evening. It's the 15th of June, 2021's report of operations. For a COVID update, we've watched the numbers come down. We had our last EOC meeting with the county and all the partners last Monday, so that's wrapped up. But we still have our ear to the grinder to listening to what's going on, situational awareness-wise in the public, and if we see a shift, I think we'll start planning in a different direction. But right now, we're looking at our procedures that we used successfully last year for this year. We're hoping to keep them as unobtrusive as possible, but we'll still try to maintain some of the things that make common sense, like the air quality, like the enhanced hand washing, like the no-touch flushes of the toilets and the sinks, and possibly some delivery of food to the rooms where it made sense for the kids and operationally. So we're looking at all that stuff, and we'll put a nice footprint together next fall that'll match the risk environment. But we have plenty of PPE. We're ready to pivot on a moment's notice, and we can change things if we see things starting to come back in a negative way. So, but right now we're planning towards a pretty open fall for next year, but we're prepared to pivot on a moment's notice if we need to. From a security perspective, we got a number of projects going on this summer. One of the things now I'm able to take some of my time away from COVID ops and go back towards something you hired me for, which was security. And so one of the things we're starting with this summer, which we intended to start last summer, we're putting up some protective ballards, which are just things that come out of the concrete to protect some of our entrances from somebody running a vehicle into them, and some of our loading areas near the buses where the kids are loading that somebody with ill intent can really do some damage there. So we're trying to protect those sites. We also did have an incident with some of the protesters trying to get into our high school, and some allegedly got in, even though they didn't. But one of the things we're looking at there is just combating human nature. Our children want to hold the doors open for each other and prop them open. So we're putting a system in place that notifies the central office if we do have a door that's propped open past a certain timeline, and Joe's working on that. So we're starting at the high school and then just working down the grade levels down to the elementaries. All of our admin staff last Monday went through reunification training, that if we have to move all of our kids off the site for say gas leak or a forest fire or something like that, we we went through the procedures for all that. It was a 4-hour training on Monday morning, and we're putting together what I call bug out kits, basically a rolling suitcase that would have signage, student lists, bullhorns, all the things that are necessary to recreate some order out of chaos in an alternate site. So that's happening this summer. Our building ground department is working through about $5 million in capital outlay projects this summer. Todd is seeing some supply chain constraints with concrete, asphalt, playground equipment, furniture, and labor, getting labor up here. Right now he's on time, but if we do have a problem where we have to extend, he's committed to coming in on the weekends and doing it as unobtrusively as possible if we are forced in that situation. You may have noticed some of our lawns turning yellow out here, and that's where we're backing off on the watering. We don't have a formal mandatory reduction yet in place, but we are slowing down the watering on our non-primary ball fields. We're trying to keep our primary ball fields as green as we can right now until we do get an order, mostly from a safety perspective, just because green lawns are softer lawns for the kids. But we are aware of the situation, and I don't know if you've noticed in front of the high school, the kind of xeriscaped landscape that's out there now. Instead of it being grass, it's more of a bark and rock type situation, which doesn't require watering. We did work with the Parks and Municipal to try to get the use of the artificial turf field at Round Valley, which is plowed, and it's a regulation field. We do have a verbal commitment right now from Parks and Municipal. We're trying to tie that down formally for our teams to use this spring as an alternate to putting in artificial turf immediately, not doing it long term. And the 2nd of July, the RSFQ architect responses are due. And Todd is going to work through those with the other Todd and our architect to kind of review those and score them. Transportation, we've got a couple new drivers in the pipeline, and one of the things we're also working to do is give our transportation a little more flexibility with scheduling, so that we don't have the whole month of July with nobody there when we need somebody to be training. And so we're working to modify Rich's contract slightly to give him the latitude to be on site and to help us get over that hump that we have every year. We do have 3 new ultra-low emission diesel buses on order right now. We just placed the order for that. A grant did come down from the state that we thought we might be able to save 25% on those, but unfortunately, based on our fleet complexion, we weren't able to qualify for that grant. We did see it and we applied for it. Child Nutrition Services has got a number of capital projects going on this summer. One of the things you charged John with when he was hired is to try to increase the number of the amount of scratch cooking, the quality of the meals, those kinds of things. And so we were backing up his efforts with the capital tools required to do that. So he's getting some steamers, some freezer upgrades ovens this summer that'll help him with that. His effort to improve food quality. He's also hired into a couple new manager positions at the schools within the last week or 2. Human Resources, they're heavily into educator evaluations, and they're coming up with a new policy for your review at the next board meeting. And we're also doing some training for our classified managers versus our education managers. And we're also deep in the heart of hiring season right now, that lots of interviews and things going on. So that's it for this month. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Mike, just wanted to say, as a participant in ESY in summer school, amazing job with all the busing and the buildings, and just a tremendous job. So I want to thank everybody for all their efforts to make that happen.
Great, I'll pass it on to the team. Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for your foresight to get us through this
Oh,
very long year. So thank you
Yeah.
for you and your team.
great folks working with us, so we appreciate it, and the community too. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Mike.
You know, even though we've had a really challenging year, there's still really much to celebrate. And I know that it's not lost on this board or on our community that our teachers, counselors, social workers, nurses, outreach coordinators, coaches, interventionists, behavior technicians, and educational support professionals have worked so hard this year to ensure continuous learning for our students. In a year where many local school districts have had to close for remote learning for extended periods of time, and often without appropriate access to personal electronic devices, or who've had to utilize a hybrid schedule to reduce the number of students in class, we here in Park City School District have benefited from some long-term priorities, such as our one-to-one electronic device initiative, as well as our prioritization of small class sizes. We created proverbial lemonade from pandemic lemons, working together and focused on the students that we serve. I'm tremendously grateful to our incredible teachers and all support staff for their unwavering commitment to the education of our students. I also do want to publicly acknowledge and thank all of our hardworking administrators. They too have done all they could do, and then some, to help us push forward to the end of a safe and successful year. In that spirit of celebration and gratitude, our principals have provided for me for our report tonight just a few highlights that I'd like to share with the board from the 2020-21 school year. So let's start with Park City High School, who celebrated the graduation of nearly 400 students on a hot June day at the back 40. Students and families at the high school have reported their appreciation of the widespread use of Canvas as a tool to be able to know what occurred in the event that they had to miss class. One student personally told me how much being able to know what they were going to miss in class so they did not get behind has personally lowered her stress level, and she's counting on those practices continuing next year. Treasure Mountain Junior High focused this year on their theme of relationships first. That's the most appropriate approach during the pandemic. This has allowed their school to remain student-centered, relationship-focused, and positive during this incredibly difficult year. Treasure Mountain this year has focused on some at-risk students, and as a result, they were able to support those students without them needing to provide significant or intensive interventions. So we appreciate those efforts. Ecker Hill Middle School's Den celebrated remaining open this school year. They credit their ability to pull together to get the job done. They were excited to be able to continue some of their traditions, like the night at the museum, which they conducted virtually, where students showcased their favorite projects and reflected on their personal growth this year. Finally, not even a pandemic could slow down the efforts of our elementary school teams to help our students develop literacy and numeracy skills. Our elementary teams remained focused on utilizing learning data to support students and to address learning gaps. The Ranch reported this year that they were all about obliterating learning loss, and they shared their school-level literacy goals were met this year. Bolton indicated that they have focused on the whole child. They want to ensure that every child is supported. They reported that they were able to also maintain some of their efforts at ongoing professional development for supporting English learners. Trailside reported growth for their English learners, and continued focusing on using data to address instruction. And Parleys reported their pride in the implementation of monthly character education with weekly virtual news shows. They also have had great success with their English learners. So one of my favorite children's books was written by author Judith Viorst. Perhaps you've read this one, or maybe you've seen the movie based on the book, which is Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. The message of the book is that you can't really control whether or not bad things happen. In reality, that's true. But what's also true is that we can definitely mitigate terrible, horrible, no good, very bad pandemics in Park City School District, and so this year we did. Do you have any questions for me?
Thanks for a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a phenomenal year, Juliana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Dr. Kilpain.
Excellent. So my message is to the class of 2021 who persevered. They took online classes, in-person classes. They Zoomed. They were separated from their friends and their classmates. They made sacrifices, but they made it. And as a class of 400 graduates, they earned just under $14 million in college scholarships. Over 63% of our first-gen students are pursuing advanced education. Over 80% of our students are pursuing 2- and 4-year college degrees overall. Our class of 2021 completed over 2,000 service hours during the global pandemic, and they completed hundreds of internships, capstone projects with an average 3.6 GPA and 25 average ACT score. We could not be more proud of their accomplishments. For all of our students, you showed us that you can handle anything. You competed in athletic competitions, in design challenges, in online learning performances, athletic contests, and more. You rose and are coming out of this year stronger than ever before. You're resilient and dedicated to success. To our staff, what a year. You were flexible. You evolved your skills. You were adaptable. You refused to be defeated by the challenges of the year. You embodied the spirit and the definition of a Park City Miner through and through. To our administrators, you've been the North Star and the team that kept us moving forward, working tirelessly and ensuring staff and student safety throughout the pandemic. I want to personally thank you for showing your Miner pride and carrying on. To our families, you were the unsung heroes of this pandemic and the past year. You were a parent, teacher, counselor, disciplinarian, employee, friend, and we could not have made it throughout the year without your support. Thank you for being part of this community of care. As we say goodbye to the school year, I hope you each take time to rest, relax, and recharge over the summer. There's still plenty of work to do even over the summer, but it's also important to decompress and take care of our social and emotional needs as well. I look forward to returning to our new normal in 21-22. While there is much to do, we will take a moment to pause and reflect before we forge on. Have a safe and happy summer.
Thank you. All right. Master.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
The voice. Should we move on to the master planning update, which I believe is
Thank you. So we're rolling along. We have a number of projects and they're all at different stages. Last week, we finished the mandatory pre-qualification meeting and we had over 18 firms respond to the RFSQ. So we're pretty excited. There was 6 contracting firms, 6 architectural firms, and a number of engineering firms. So those are the 3 entities that will come together and create the team that will work on the design build for the high school. So excited about that. We're into the next phase of that. So between now and July 2nd, those teams will put their qualification statements together, and we'll have a review committee take a look at that, comprised of board members, administrators, and experts, consultants. And hopefully that will all go quite well. Actually, I don't expect any hiccups in that process, but we will be coming to the board in your August meeting for a final determination of who that design build team will be. So the committee will get all the work together, all the qualifications, RFP responses, and then you'll have that final opportunity to take a look at what the recommendations are and then award a contract. And we'll be ready that soon to start working on the high school. So we're excited about that. So far, we don't see any delays or disruptions in that process. So that's running. And then with that, we also have the Ecker Elementary School, or Ecker Middle School. That's the next project that we saw on the priority list. So that will be the upcoming RFSQ. And we just wanted to check in with you to make sure we're on the right timing of this. We have 6 projects in total. And the anticipation is that we would start those projects as soon as possible or at the front end of the scheduling. To accomplish that, we need to put an RFSQ for each of those projects out about every 2 to 4 weeks. So we'll have multiple of these. If that's starting to feel too fast or too much too soon, that's okay. We can stretch that out. It doesn't change any of the financing questions. It just changes the timing of the scheduling itself. And so you can say we want to make sure the secondary schools are up and in place and looking good, and then work on the elementary schools in their time. Or we just keep on our pace that we're going about every 3 to 4 weeks. We'll have the next one roll out. Are there any thoughts or concerns about how we're cranking this out?
No, I think to go with our previous discussions, keeping on that 2 to 3 weeks, does everybody still feel comfortable with that?
Yes, yes.
I have a question. So if we're,
Yes, yes, go down.
if we're not going to have a plan until August, how are we going to decide whether the bond is part of it? Because don't we any, when's the deadline to put a bond on the ballot?
Yeah, so the resolution itself has to be adopted before August 19th. And we have a board meeting on August 17th. At this juncture, we actually have a project list. We know the scope of what the board wants to advance.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to drop things off or shake those up in some fashion, there's still time to do that. Once the resolution is in place after the 19th, we have until we have to put the voter information pamphlet out to identify the price tags with each of the projects. So the resolution simply says we want to do a remodel at the high school, we want to do a remodel at the Ecker, we want to do an add-on at Park or at Jeremy, and an add-on at McMullen, and a remodel or add-on. So it's more generic in that sense. But
So we would still qualify, and then what's the next deadline to have the actual amounts on the ballot?
Yeah. So the voter information pamphlet has to be out 45 days before election day. So that's going to be short on. It's going to be in September that has to go out.
You said that has to be, what date in August was that again?
So August 19
Okay.
is the resolution. And the resolution will have the overall limit. So this is the upper bound of what can be bonded for. So it's just an authorization. It's not the actual bond instrument itself. It's just we will raise up to this dollar amount for the projects. But the projects aren't itemized as far as what each one gets dollar-wise, if that makes sense.
When will we be done with all of the team selection by?
So the rate we're going now, it'll be into end of September probably before we get the last of the elementaries, unless we start combining elementaries. Say we want to do the McPullen and Jeremy together because it's basically the same footprint of the building. So you would probably just have that one go out as its own RFSQ and own RFP because it's basically the same thing. It's just how you attach to the building. And then you could look at the Parleys and the trail side. Parleys is a little more involved, trail side is a little less involved. So you can probably bundle that together. So that would have us 3 more out doing kind of 3-week cycles. Yeah, we'll be into September with that last set.
So from the master plan, you've got your concepts. So the design build teams are going to be able to look at those concepts, do it, they're going to go back to the schools and talk to the teams and the planning teams and make sure that we've got the right things captured, but pretty much remember a lot of it's done. because you've got the standard, what a classroom is, you've got your standard fixture, furniture, equipment done, you've got your programming outlined, you've got your age and obsolescence plan, so you've got a lot of that built into all of that, so it's just getting these firms up to speed so that they can then, keep going. And you just got the upper limit. You
Yeah.
already know your upper limit number. So
Yeah.
now you're just talking about, are you wanting to go full in on the green? Are you wanting to scale back the green? Are you wanting to phase it differently?
And there's been some conversation of trying to pull the board together to have a work session to talk about sustainability. And something we'd still encourage to have happen at that meeting, it may not be a discussion of specific project, like what would a project be at the high school, but it would be more of setting what are the standards and the desired outcomes and expectations that the sustainability project would accomplish. And then design teams would then build to those requirements. So you might say they should all be built at a LEED standard, or they need to have this level of energy efficiency within either the construction materials or within the project itself that it will generate some of its own kilowatt hours, say, on the electricity side. So instead of saying, I want solar panels or geothermal, it wouldn't be that kind of conversation. It would be very much when this project goes in place, it needs to meet these levels of expectation, and you would set those, and then we design to that level.
Great.
Go
ahead. No, that sounds great. I think the work session makes a lot of sense. It's, we can agree on a date.
Yeah.
And I was gonna also just throw in there, I feel like we're still waiting on that breakdown of what the green initiative line item is in that, what exactly it would be covering, so I think a work session would be great.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so throw that back to you. Is there a time? It's best to have this before the August 17th meeting, because if there's a determination that the price tag is going to change, or the budgeted amount is going to be something different than the numbers we have through the MHTN and MOCA process, it's good to know, because then we could set that expectation. Oh, the maximum will be 140, not the 153 that we're working with right now, or some other number, and then we would understand for the design build team that, hey, this project is now this large. It's not the 60 million we had, it's now 52 million, and we want this type of green element in the building, or we want to have this different maybe incorporated. So that, again, if you can make the time work, it would be better to before August 19 or August 17 board meeting than
Okay.
later.
So I think a work session would be a great idea. Sorry, I don't know.
So I think,
And
was it Ann?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is MOCA going to be available so that we can kind of dig into the green initiative?
Yes.
And get some answers on what that number was going to encompass, and then get a better understanding? Is that something we can have them included in, or we don't need them?
No, we will definitely have them there, especially if we start looking at what the standard, what the policy standards will be. They will be a great resource to help us understand if you have an EUI measure, so your use of energy index. If you're going to set a policy that says it should be a score of 30, most of us will look at each other and say, I don't know, is that good, bad, indifferent? We don't know what that is. So Dave and Paul will be able to come in and help us appreciate what that index means, so that when you look to applying that to the projects themselves, we were able to communicate that to the design build teams and say, hey, when this thing comes online, it's got to be this efficiency level, has to beat or meet this index that we've now adopted by our expectations as a board.
do you have any more questions or concerns?
No, I think we should schedule it.
Thanks.
Okay, I think we should schedule it. I think trying to schedule it with the communication happening, so I'll get an email out, but let's try to do it in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And remote works as well. The
Yeah.
MOCA team, our weekly meetings are remote, so they're totally versed in that and able to share really good information remotely if that's how we have to go.
Perfect. Get that on the schedule.
All right, so I got off track, so we're on the ECHO project. So that one, the RF, let me back up to the high school. So the RFSQ, hopefully we'll have that worked out with the board determination on August 17th. In the meantime, we have the RFP, so that's the actual specifications for them to cost out what they think the project will be, incorporating all of our expectations. So that document is being drafted now, and we hope to have that out at the time that we select our top firms. And the top 3 in that qualification, so on August 17th, we'd like to push the RFP out the next day. So on the 18th, we want that out so that they respond back quickly on that and give them the opportunity to bid appropriately. So the ECHR is now, we're at the point of finishing up that RFSQ. And it could be one of the firms that have already responded to the high school one, or it could be ones that missed that opportunity and are still looking for an opportunity to come up here to the Park City area. We can have that one ready pretty quick. Are you okay with the 2 to 3 week intervals? If so, our 3rd week would actually be next week, and we put it out on the street probably Tuesday next week. Or is that, are you feeling like that's moving too quick?
We're good.
We're good? Cool. So we'll keep to that 3-week cycle, so we'll generate a couple more RFSQs in for the elementary schools on that basis. I think what else is going? Yep, and you've asked the questions about the important resolution. Should we go to bond? We're pulling all that together. I actually have a draft of that right now, the bill to run in August 17 meeting. Have all the projects listed on it, but I haven't put a dollar amount on that resolution yet. So as soon as we feel comfortable with that, we can draft that in and be ready for the 17th for your vote, up or down, whatever direction you think you want to go on that.
Okay.
And I think what else, other feedback. So we've also been exploring the building authority, so the other pathway by which we would go about bonding. There's been some questions about what does that look like? Where's the money actually come from? What is the lease revenue that's paid? And so the district has the opportunity to go within its own budget. So we look at the capital budget and we generate about $5 million under the current levy. You could repurpose that to capital levy in order to fund the lease payments. So that those are the 2 options that are available within the capital levy. Or you can go into the general fund. You have the voted levy and the board local levy. Each of those, same pattern. You can either redesign budgets to free up the lease payment amount, or we increase either of those levies accordingly to cover the lease amount. At the end of the day, the answer is it's a property tax application, whether it's new property tax revenues or existing, would be up to the board to decide how to balance the budget and take on that commitment. So hopefully that's not crazy news, but those are some of the questions that have been coming. Well, how do you pay the lease? And so that's where that's coming from. We've also done a little bit of survey work to find out what types of local building authority bonds are out there. And we're finding that most of the ones that are out there are for smaller projects in the $10 to $15 million range. The largest one that happened last year was with Nebo School District, and it was $35 million. So if we look to that vehicle, maybe that we need to chunk this out and take a look at what are the really top priorities and determine how best to finance that. The high school is probably at the upper end of that level, because we're looking at a project that's closer to 60 million. The ECHR one is right about that size, it's in the 40 million. And then the elementary schools are in the 10 to 12 million range. So those fit more expectedly within that financing structure. So we are doing our homework and making sure that we've got the right financial structure in place once you're ready on that.
Thanks. Does anybody have any further questions for Todd? Okay, let's move on to discussion item, the retiree resolution. First I'll get a motion. Can I get a motion to adopt the retiree resolution of 2021?
I'll make a motion to adopt the retiree resolution.
Ann, can you second?
Yeah, second, I can't hear Lori's typing, I'm so sorry. Yes, I second. Sorry, Lori.
Perfect, and I'm gonna go ahead and read it. So the resolution of recognition and appreciation, memories of our lives, of our works, and our deeds will continue in others, Rosa Parks. Whereas the Park City School District has been fortunate to have a dedicated staff committed to the mission of the district, and whereas several members of the staff are now about to embark on new adventures in life away from the Park City Public Schools. And whereas we, as members of the Park City Board of Education, wish to extend the utmost appreciation for the work that these staff members have done to make education an exciting and joyous experience for the students of our district. And whereas the board wishes to extend our sincere best wishes for every happiness in the future of those staff members who will be leaving the district at the end of the year 2021. Now therefore, it is resolved that the Park City Board of Education recognizes and appreciates the service of those employees departing the district, those employees being Karen Augustine, Marianne Demers, Renee Perry, Craig Robertson, Nancy Berry, Mary Jean Johnson, Danielle Meyer, Kim Sobel, Mary Clysmith, Marnie Moody, Susan Preston, Julene Smith, Sharon Ellsworth Nielsen, Dwayne Horrocks, David Nell, Barb Swenson, Susan Barbizon, Jeannie Kutcher, Diane Stanford, and wishes to them in all future endeavors, and further that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded within the minutes of the Park City Board of Education on the 15th of the month, June, in the year 2021. A's, can I get all approved?
Yes.
Yes. So all,
Yes.
yes, thank you. All right.
Yes.
All right, we will go now to policies for adoption. Can I get a motion to approve the following policies for adoption? Policy 1000, harassment and non-discrimination prohibited. Policy 1001, code of conduct. Policy 3005, school community councils. Policy 9065, volunteers in schools. Policy 11002, conduct of school on school premises. Policy 11003, visitor access. Policy 11004, unmanned aircraft systems.
I make a motion to adopt the 7 policies as read.
Second?
Any discussion?
No. No.
No. So all in favor? Oh, Lori, did we get anything in writing?
We do, yes.
Okay. For,
We have a couple of people here to speak about public comment. About.
no, about,
Oh, on these policies.
on these policies for
Yes.
adoption.
Yeah. So we have a couple that want to speak on those, and then I have one that was emailed into me
Okay,
on the policy.
okay. So,
Do you want,
do we want to pull that policy out, or?
Which policy is it?
this one is policy 1000, harassment discrimination. This one, I'm not sure which policy. This one is policy 1000, harassment and non-discrimination. So we have 2 for that policy.
Three.
3.
So do we want to,
Let's pull that one.
let's, okay, so can I amend the motion to remove policy 1000 harassment and non-discrimination?
Can I make a motion to amend the adoption for
Second.
excluding policy 1000?
Sorry, you guys are, I'm getting every second word, so sorry about that, I second.
No, so can we go, can we,
Can I vote on the other one?
let's vote, so can I get a vote on approving the others as read?
Aye.
I,
Perfect, okay, so those is read. So we will hold policy 1000 until after public comment. Does that sound good? Perfect, we are gonna move into actual public comment, but can we just take a quick 2-minute break?
So they're taking a break to get in here.
thanks.
It's probably on the agenda. 7.01 is public comment, and 3.01 is employee group reports. Public comment, yeah. Yeah, I see you there.
Yes.
Policy 1000 is not typically Makes sense. I mean, maybe after we get through the budget, pieces, even if it's 10 of them. Yeah. Gotcha.
All right, come back. Go into public comment. The Board of Education wants to hear live input from community members at our meetings. In order to respect and preserve the time allotted to each presenter, each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers representing a group will be limited to 5 minutes. Anyone with concerns related to items listed on the agenda may participate in public portion of the meeting. However, let's see, the public comment portion of the meeting should relate to the district matters and the agenda item versus a platform for personal and political statements. This is not the place to address personnel matters or a complaint. If you wish to address the board, please read and complete the blue public comment sheet on the table by the door and give it to the board clerk. Each speaker will be invited to the rostrum to speak in the order in which the form was received. Please state your name clearly for the record. The Board of Education expects that all public comment be polite, respectful, and accurate. Please refrain from specifically identifying personnel. Personnel issues are not appropriate for public comment. Therefore, such comments will not be allowed. So, I will start with Elizabeth Quinn Fergulia.
Yes, thank you.
You can have a seat up here.
Thank you all for hearing. Hello everyone. My name is Elizabeth Quinn Fergulia. I am the mother of 2 Parley's children, Parley students, and I'm also an aide at the school. So I am speaking in regard to Policy 1000, Harassment and Non-Discrimination Prohibited. And thank you all for having a discussion about articulating your harassment and your non-discrimination policy. I'm specifically asking, and forgive me while I consult my notes, I'm specifically asking that you revise this policy so that you can articulate in no uncertain terms that you will not be discriminating against the parents of students at their schools. I would hope that in the future, if I perhaps wanted to transfer to a different school to teach that, and my daughters were going to that same school, I would hope that I would not be turned away or denied simply because they were students at that school. I know that colleagues of mine have spoken with our fair president, Ms. Grady, and you have assured them that this is not the case. So I have a simple request that you could please insert wording to this effect that parents of students are not going to be discriminated against for teaching at that same school. It would just show good faith that we are being judged on the merits as educators and not on anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Holly Ray.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr. Gilday, for hearing my comment tonight. I understand that you addressed a bit of this, but I need to say this, and I need to share my truth with you all. And it does pertain to Policy 1000, I promise. I'm approaching you as a longtime school district employee, a mother, and a taxpayer. I would like to first acknowledge the challenges, processes, and improvements that we all strive towards as Park City continues to grow. Our once small town is increasing in population, development, and real estate price. One thing we can all agree on after this COVID year is the value and necessity of our school district and its teachers. One thing we can all agree on is the need to hire and retain our good teachers for the sake of the community's children. In the past, employees were told that their children could attend PCSD schools with their parent at the elementary level. It was a small benefit. It cost the district very little relative to the overall budget. It was a selling point, a recruitment tool. The principles used in hiring a teacher is valued. It meant we as employees were invested in their respective schools, and that our employer and our school was our family's home base. This year, many teachers and other employees who are also parents got rejection letters from the district office denying our kindergartners admission to schools. Somewhere we teach at, but not all. Some of us out of district, but not all. While it is understandable that adherence to changes in policy is now underway as Park City changes, the leadership must understand how real lives your children's teachers' lives are affected as a result. I cannot overstate the emotional toll that the denial-laters took upon teachers in the last third of the most stressful year that most have ever experienced. When you hear about the acceptance of other non-employees' children, processes that were never posted or shared, changes for which we were never prepared, when you seek out answers that seem conflicting, you begin to question if leadership values you. It is disheartening and demoralizing. There is a real human toll. So today, I ask that before you approve Policy 1000, you should consider adding one more group to the list of vulnerable folks in the language that prevents discrimination in the admissions of teachers' children and the employees of Park City School District. Please make a statement that we won't have to go through again what we are still enduring as the final decision of our appeal to the denial letters are still unknown. Make a statement in writing that in the midst of rapid growth and change, that your teachers and employees, who might also be parents, won't be put at a disadvantage in admissions, as some were in the spring of 2021. Add employees to the anti-discrimination policy and let us take heart. Let us be at peace and feel a sense of stability, knowing that we can do our job and our lives as parents will be a little easier. Teachers may be priced out of Park City, but our contribution is priceless, and you should want desperately to protect that. Help us to know that our policies are changing in a way that is consistent with growth and the needs of the town, yet still honors and absolutely protects the people and employees who make it happen and make it happen well. Education is a family endeavor. If you take some of us, you need to protect all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Megan McKenna.
Good afternoon. My name is Megan McKenna. I am a steward of the Park City chapter of the American Federation of Teachers, and I will be speaking today on behalf of members and non-members who have reached out to me and expressed concern regarding open enrollment and access to school board meetings. Thank you, as always, for your time in allowing me to make a public comment this afternoon. We had hoped to make a public comment in the last month's meeting, but emailed it instead, as we learned it wasn't an option. We have yet to receive a response to the emailed public comment, and so would like to share an updated version of it here today. In terms of open enrollment, I think we've heard quite a bit from PCA and from teachers directly impacted. What we would like to add to that is if the district is unable to assure teachers at this time in writing that their children will be able to attend the school in which they applied as PCA requested, we would like to formally request a roundtable in which all stakeholders can address ongoing questions and concerns regarding open enrollment. Clearly there is still a lot of concern amongst teachers. In your public comment guidelines, number 13 states, in the event of a specific topic that is foremost in the public's mind or requires additional input and information, a separate town hall meeting, roundtable, or a separate meeting may be scheduled at Board of Education discretion. We think this applies to open enrollment concerns. In regards to access to school board meetings, access to school board meetings has been an ongoing challenge this year. You can imagine the disappointment when we were unable to participate in the last school board meeting of the 2020-2021 school year. For many of us, the most challenging of an already challenging career. Public comments posted a month after a meeting buried in the minutes is not sufficient, especially for time-sensitive issues, like the removal of the mask mandate the last week of school. Even more disappointing was not getting a response from our emailed public comment from a single board member. AFT-PC is eager to move forward. We hope the school board has learned the value of providing public access to public school board meetings. We look forward to working together the next school year and repairing any damage done and restoring any trust lost. Contrary to what some may believe, we are not a small group of disgruntled teachers. We are a small group of passionate teachers that is not afraid to speak up when we feel some voices are not being heard. We will always advocate for our students, our colleagues, our community, our democracy, and our profession. We have no intention of negotiating the contract or taking members from PCA. We formed to empower PCA, to lift them up so they can better represent all teachers. We love our PCA brothers and sisters. We are all teachers, and we are united. We plan to continue working with them to better support one another. We are excited for the new PCA leadership and have a lot of faith in the up-and-coming leadership team. We look forward to only strengthening our collaboration with them. We thank you again for all of your efforts this year, for your time and consideration today, and the opportunity to publicly comment. We wish you all a happy and healthy and much deserved summer break. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassie Voltaggio.
Hi, I'm Cassie Voltaggio. I'm a Park City alumni, teacher, mother, and I live out of district. I'm here today to kind of piggyback on what was said by PCEA, but it's regarding transportation. And historically, teachers have been able to use transportation from the elementary school to come over to the Ecker Hill or to come to the high school after school, so they didn't have to find childcare for their kids. And this is questionable now because it was highlighted on our acceptance letter that transportation will not be provided. My kids were recommended for summer school this year and accepted, and I was given bus routes for them to be able to take from Pine Brook to McPullen, which would save me a considerable commute. Since I come up from Salt Lake every day. After a successful day of riding the bus, I was called today and told that they were not allowed transportation, despite the fact that the bus was not full to capacity. It is not a charge to the district to have my 2 children take the bus that is already routed to that stop and go to McPullen and then be dropped off at that same bus stop so that I can pick them up and save a half hour each way. My 2 children are the only 2 children in the district, or in the summer school program, that are affected by this. I think that should be rectified. I think the policy should be written so that transportation should be provided. And what we historically have read it as is that transportation is not provided. Yeah, they're not going to come to my house at Salt Lake and pick them up and take them back. But if it's already a route that the bus takes and the bus is not full to capacity, the students of teachers should be allowed to take the bus.
I think that is all the public comment for this evening. So we will go ahead and move to adjourn.
No, we have
Oh, wait.
policy 1000.
Oh, to move back up to policy, yeah, sorry, we need to go back up to policy 1000. Harassment and non-discrimination. Can I get a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve policy 1000.
Second?
Discussion. And I'll answer. Do you have any comments?
I do not.
I don't either.
Okay.
So a couple things with regards to the public comment made. I think the comments made on policy 1000 are more suited for policy, whatever it is, 10,010, is it? 10,010 open enrollment, rather than harassment and non-discrimination. But that said, my personal view is that, again, as we kind of stated at the beginning of the meeting, we want everyone's children to be in the district. And, I think the number, Lori clarified the number, there's 16 parents who are still waiting on a decision about the enrollment of their children, I should clarify, 16 parents who are also employees of the district. So there are other parents who are not employees of the district who are also waiting, and hopefully the vast majority of those will be resolved after our budget hearing, which is in about an hour or half hour's time. But again, the board has always had a policy to try to include families of staff in the district, and that has never changed, right? So, I don't think that even the update of the policy 10,010, which is the open enrollment policy, changes that from the board's perspective. And I would add that, clarification of that specific policy will take place, again, once we have an OCR complaint resolved, and we're able to, according to our legal counsel. So, we have every intention of updating that policy further to remove anxiety or provide clarification so that this doesn't happen again. And I think, as we discussed earlier in the meeting, we want to work with PCBA and its members, going forward so that, everyone is on the same page about what the process is, the timelines and all of that. And, I think it's one of those things which has caused undue anxiety in a tough year. So apologies for that, because that, it just sucks. But my view is it's not really policy 1000, but we're, again, we're all willing to speak to anyone, after today who still has an unresolved issue and try to get to it. I think it should probably be in the low single digits, if at all. So that's my only comment on 1000. So it's somewhat related, but not really.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to kind of echo Andrew a little bit. I'm also agree that I don't think it's changing and that the board does feel that way. I've spoken to a lot of teachers personally. I've spoken to Mr. Webb and again said whatever we need to do, the thought process with that original 1010 was to help clarify language. Obviously that did not work, so we're willing to step back once that OCR comes back and we can move that state statute forward, making sure that it's all in alignment. But as far as 1000, I don't think that it is. So if we have a motion, can we all in favor of approving the policy 1000 harassment and non-discrimination?
Aye.
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 All in favor? Perfect. Thank you. All right. Now we'll make a motion to adjourn until our budget hearing at 6 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the regularly scheduled meeting until the budget hearing at 6 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Okay. Should we? Cassie?
see why that should be a problem.
We're gonna follow up and get back to you, and try to get back to you and see what is.
I don't
So is it a problem to
You tell, and I'll call you back.
Yeah, it's, well, it comes, so I'm coming out, there's, you know, from Salt Lake, and it's just right there in front of us.
It's up to you, you can either hang up or sit.
Yeah, waiting, I'm
You can either hang up or just go to mute, whatever works for you.
Yeah, no, look, I think they should funnel it to you, and then you come and say, look, here are the problems, and then let's address it. I mean, I think tomorrow, and hopefully it sounds like the vast majority are going to be fixed, right? Based on, you know, our approval of the budget, which, so that should be, unless we still have a few, you know, there may be some that we have to get partial exemption for, or we may have to look at just different methods to make sure that it works, right? But yeah, I mean, I think
good to go? All right, let's open up for our 2021 budget meeting and pass it over to Todd.
Great, thank you very much. We're coming to the culmination of several months of budget conversations, and we're now down to our final presentation for the 2021 budget that we're closing out here in just a few days, and setting ourselves up for the upcoming school year and its budget. The big highlights are the changes from last month. If you recall, we were going through the budget, we still had some things that were unconcluded, mostly in the tax rates for property tax. So since our last meeting, we've finished up the property tax rates for the county. So that's our capital levy, voted and board levies. Those rates are now certified. And the amount of revenue that's going to generate off of those certified rates will actually be sufficient that we don't have to raise taxes this cycle. So this budget, even though we talked about the 4-year contracts, et cetera, and needing to do tax increases in the out years, not this year. There's been enough property tax revenue coming in that that's totally unnecessary. What is still in flux is the basic levy. So that rate is set by the tax commission based on statewide assessed values. They're not done with their work yet, so we have a projected number in this budget. And so you'll see there's a motion towards the end to allow the business administrator to make revenue adjustments and tax rate adjustments. It's to accommodate that certified tax rate that hasn't been released yet. The tax commission won't release that until about June 22nd. That's when they have to make it available, way past our time together. So you'll see that motion in there, and that's just to capture that. So overall, looking at the operating budget, which is basically the general fund, student activity fund, and food services fund, we're looking at a $94 million revenue budget, which is a 5% increase. Again, most of that coming through the property taxes. That's what's happening with assessed valuations going up and additional growth in our area. On the expense side for the operations budget, we're looking at an expense budget that's just short of that, so we're planning to have a little bit of a surplus as we come to the end of this year. Again, that will position us well as we look forward to our master planning process, because that helps to support costs that will come online and facilities with additional square footage come online. It's probably a conversation we haven't gone into any great depth of detail on, but that is when you add additional square feet, you have additional utility costs, additional custodial costs, additional outfitting costs that don't get caught up in the bond or debt financing. So we're positioning ourselves well for that. So that will be about a $93.7 million budget, which represents a 4% increase over last year. Now the majority of that 4% increase is the comp package, about 2.4, almost 2.5 million is that. And the balance is the estimated recapture. So as you recall, as the state sets the basic levy, we're entitled to receive only what the value of the WPU is for every student that's in our system. If the tax generates more money than that entitlement, we have to return that money to the state. So that's the balance of those dollars. So when you get right into it, even though we have a 4% increase, operationally it's closer to a 2.5% increase. The rest being the obligation of returning recaptured monies. We're also looking at the student enrollments. We had the Davis demographic group come through and kind of give us the picture of this year and into the next 10 years. This upcoming year is a very small decline, 0.3% that we're looking at there of a decline in enrollment. But we've maintained the staffing levels at the level that we're at now. And also seeing we've talked a little bit about kindergarten and some of the other grades. We will be using the ESSER funds that are coming, so the ESSER 2 funds. Those funds will be used to fund additional teaching positions so that we can maintain class sizes and accommodate all of the students that we want to within the system. So those are probably the big highlights, that we have ESSER 2 built in and that we will not have a tax increase at this time. With that, I'll be quiet and let you conduct the rest of the hearing.
Perfect. So on to public comment, and we have anybody here for public comment? Do we have any public comment that wrote in?
I do.
Okay, would you like to read that?
Are we to that point?
I
Yes.
think, do we have any other discussion or go to?
Yeah, do you
Yeah,
guys
no,
have any questions or?
Do you have public comment?
I have one
Okay.
that I've received in an email.
Great.
So this is from Maggie Ruoden, and she asks, can you please explain the repayment mechanism of the lease revenue bond option the board authorized last September? The park record states that the bondholders can be repaid via the school district's 2 tax revenue streams. Where does that tax money come from?
Did you approve the lease revenue bond last year? I don't believe we did we?
No, if you want me to respond, I can respond to
Yeah.
that in particular. What we've been talking about over the past months is that option of a lease revenue bond through a local building authority. So back last September was the actual action of creating the authority. It didn't create any bonding. It just created the structure whereby that option could be exercised. So that's what's happening with the board action is the structure is now in place. In the event that we want to engage in a lease revenue debt financing structure, and I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, is that it is a property tax revenue stream that would be used to pay that lease payment or the principal and interest that the authority incurred through issuing the bond. And the levies that are available to the district to do that are the capital levy, the board local levy, and the voted leeway. So depending on how you want to manage that debt service or that lease payment, you would look to one of those 3 levies to pay for it. And you can either do it one of 2 ways. One is you can increase the levies and generate the revenue that's necessary for the principal and interest payment, or we rebalance the budget and we realign current property tax dollars to pay the lease payment. So those are the 2 general options you have there.
We have any other? So I will go. Let's see. I move to adopt the final budget for the fiscal year 2021 as presented, found on page 7.
Okay. Do you want to do them all together, or do we do one by one?
It'll be better to do them individually.
Okay.
So they're
All right, I make a motion to adopt the final budget for fiscal year 21 as presented on page 7.
Second,
Any discussion?
if you're not.
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move.
Aye.
Go ahead and let Andrew just read the next.
Oh, go ahead.
I move to adopt the preliminary budget for fiscal year 22 as presented on page 7. Do we have
For
a
a second?
Yeah, perfect.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to adopt the preliminary tax rates for 2021 as presented, which is no increase, on page 22.
Any discussion? Or, sorry, we need a second.
Nope.
Any discussion? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move
Unanimous?
to authorize the business administrator to make the necessary changes to revenue and expense budgets and tax rates once the certified tax rates are released by the state.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
All right, thank you. We're in business.
Perfect. So,
I'll make a motion to adjourn until our work session, which has not yet been scheduled.
we'll get that out as soon as possible.
Yeah. Give a second, Ann.
Sorry, I can't hear you guys.
I'm just moving to adjourn till our work session.
Okay. I second. I was supposed to.
Yes, thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry,
Aye.
I'm hearing every third word and trying to track.
All right, we'll adjourn until our next meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.